there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast. Today, we are going to talk about the Week 5 starts and sits. We got some great games for fantasy this weekend, and we got some terrible games for fantasy this weekend. So we're going to talk about them all. Here we go.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast. And today we are going to talk about the Week 5 starts and sits. Going to go through all the games, what players have good matchups, what players have bad matchups. We're going to go through them all. And hey, before I begin, if you could please do me a favor, give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment, share this with your friends, and of course, subscribe. All those things really help me out with that YouTube algorithm, gets me more exposure, and I do appreciate it. And for those of you that watch me regularly, I just have to apologize for missing my Monday show, doing the waiver wire. It's just, I don't know what happened. It's the beginning of the quarter, it's the beginning of the month, and somehow I just had zero time to be able to do that show. I had my script and everything, but I couldn't get it together to get that show out in time. So I hope you went out on the waiver wire. Remember, never stop improving your team. There's always good guys to pick up on the waiver wire. I picked up Samaje Perine in one of my leagues this week, and so anyway, just keep working on it because we got good things happening. My teams have totally stratified though, whereas going into the beginning of the season, all the teams were strong, but my two teams where I happen to have CMC as my number one pick are all in real trouble right now. They are in real trouble. It's not going good for them. But my other teams are doing pretty good, and I've got two teams that are extremely strong right now. So I'm happy with that. It's kind of like two really strong teams, two middle of the road teams, and then two teams that are really really struggling. So that's fantasy for you. Trying my best in one of those struggling teams. Holy cow, man! I've got so many players out right now. This team I had obviously CMC, and then I also had T. Higgins out. And I had, oh my God, who are the other two? Oh, Gronkowski was out, and one more. So I had 4 players out, plus I had Curtis Samuel on my bench. So I had 5 players out. I almost couldn't field a team to play this weekend. I had to go on the waiver wire and pick some guys up last second just to throw them in there. And, oh, man, it's not good. I need my players back. I need them back right now. So anyway, let's go to the matchups. Now, when it comes to matchups, and I've talked about this when you're looking on the waiver wire too, volume is the key. And what I'm looking for when it comes to wide receivers, what I like to see is at least a 7 target potential. If they can get 7 targets, that can usually get them enough receptions to make them a good fantasy player. For tight ends, my threshold is a little bit lower. I like 6. Although I'll take a 5 because it's such a thin position, and sometimes you don't have anything better than that. And then for running backs, I like to see a combination of 15 touches and targets in order to say, okay, let's go ahead and start that guy. Now, there are certain exceptions to this, like Cordarrelle Patterson, who's just tearing it up this year. He's obviously great. We're going to recommend him to start, even though he does not hit those thresholds. But when we're talking about who do I really want to bench here and stuff, a lot of times it's because it's a guy, maybe he had a great week last week, right? Maybe he got 2 touchdowns last week, but then you look at his stats and he got like 5 targets. And I'm like, dude, I cannot trust that guy to start in fantasy football. So that's kind of where I'm coming from when we're looking at the starts and sits, not just the matchup, but also the volume that we could get from that player. So this week, it looks like it's going to be kind of a tough week, man. I got 5 games labeled as fantasy graveyards, just low-scoring affairs. There's not going to be a lot of fantasy points, and so you got to be careful with these games, and kind of, I think you want to minimize your exposure on these games. I mean, obviously, we got some must-starts on all these teams, but for the most part, if you're trying to decide between, should I start player A or player B, and player A is going to be in a gold mine game and player B is going to be in a graveyard game, you know what? I'm going for the gold mine player. That's the kind of player I want. So let's just start right out. We'll just go right into it. The first graveyard game is a Sunday early game, Saints at Washington. Again, We've got two struggling offenses. And we've got the Saints, who have a really good defense to counter whatever Washington's offense can bring, because Washington's offense has been all right. But, of course, the Saints offense, just a total turd show right now. It's just awful. For the Saints, outside of Alvin Kamara, I can't trust anyone in this offense. And, I think the Saints defense is the only other thing you could start from this team right now. I would not want to start anyone else on this team. Washington's a little bit better, right? Washington, you got McLaurin, definite start, top 10 matchup. Great for McLaurin. Curtis Samuel is going to be back this week, but I'm going to recommend you sit him. We want to see what his usage is in this offense. He obviously has not been playing with this offense at all with that groin injury, so we don't know what's going to happen with him. So he's very risky if you're going to start him. I don't want to. I want to keep him on my bench. Let's see what happens this week. Then we'll talk about him next week. Let's see here. Saints are top 10 against the run also, but I think Gibson's a start. You got to start Gibson. But that's it with that team. It's pretty cut and dry. There's not a lot of players you want to start. Next graveyard game, Patriots at the Texans. And what you got, again, two low-caliber offensive teams. For the Patriots, obviously the defense is a start. They're great. That's going to be a great thing to start there. But the only player I could even consider starting is Jacoby Myers, and only if you're in a PPR league. The dude hasn't gotten any touchdowns through 4 games. He's getting great volume. So, you just take the volume. You hope he gets like maybe 6 or 7 catches for 70 yards. You'll have a great week if you're in PPR, but otherwise I wouldn't play him, and I wouldn't play anyone else on this offense. The backfield, no thanks. Quarterback, no thanks. Tight ends, no thanks. So anyway, there you go for that one. On Houston, it's even worse. The only player I would even consider recommending is Brandon Cooks, and that's it. And again, PPR, much more appealing than in a non-PPR league, but that's it. And those are the only players that you should even consider from this game. Next game, another Sunday early game. We got the Broncos at the Steelers. And what you got here, man, is you got two struggling offenses. You got two pretty good defenses here. Actually, I would be okay starting either the Steelers or the Broncos defense. But with Bridgewater being out with a concussion, I think he is a long shot to play. So it's going to be Drew Lock again. The whole offense is going to suffer. Pittsburgh is top 5 against running backs. So I think Gordon and Williams, both of them are just marginal volume plays. They both get about 15 touches and targets a game. But with the bad matchup, I just don't like it. I wouldn't start him unless you absolutely don't have anyone else to put into like your flex. The only guys on the Broncos that I would start are Sutton and Font. Again, volume plays. They're going to get over that 7 target threshold that I like to see. And it's not a terrible matchup for them. So I think that they will be effective. On the Steelers side, again, it's a very limited number of players that you can actually start. The only 2 that I would be interested in starting right now is Deontay Johnson, again, as a volume play, because the dude just gets targets. He got like 13 last week. That's brilliant for fantasy football. Go with that. And, of course, Najee Harris, who's been fantastic, even though he hasn't gotten any touchdowns. I don't think he's gotten any touchdowns. Maybe he got one this past week. I don't remember. But those are the only 2 guys you can start. Roethlisberger looks like crap. The other receivers, you got Chase Claypool dealing with an injury. You got Juju Smith-Schuster also dealing with an injury and just sucking. He's just terrible. So anyway, that's all you can do on that game. See how we're just rolling through these games really quick? Next one, Browns at the Chargers. Now, I almost put this one into my fantasy gold mine, but you know what? That Browns defense is legit. Shoot, I mean, holding the Minnesota Vikings to 7 points last week, that is devastatingly good. So obviously the Browns defense, yes, that's I think they're a start. Even against this great Chargers offense, I think you can start them. The Browns, really the only starts that you can really do are Chubb and Hunt. That's it. Those are the guys that are automatic starts every week at this point. The Chargers are top 2 against the pass. So OBJ's a sit. Mayfield is obviously a non-factor, and Hooper is getting virtually zero production. So I would sit him despite the fact that he has a decent matchup, and he might get a touchdown this week just because of the pass defense is so good against receivers. But I just don't like the idea of starting Hooper. He just has not done anything this week, and his volume is terrible. On the Chargers side, it's bad matchups across the board. But I think, you got to start the stars. Herbert, Eckler, Williams, and Allen. I think all of them are starts, despite the fact that all of them have a bottom, have a bottom 10 matchup that they're going against. So it's going to be tough for them. Could be a disappointing week for most of them. One will probably come through, I'm guessing. The final fantasy graveyard I want to talk about is the Bears at the Raiders on Sunday afternoon. Chicago doesn't have any daunting matchups here, but again, with Justin Fields and the way the offense is kind of producing, Montgomery's out. It's not a great situation. I do like Darnell Mooney. I think he's a start. He's got a great connection with Fields. Damian Williams has a great matchup, but he is also injured. I think he's got a thigh injury right now, so he might be at less than 100%. He will get the volume, though, in this game, so check his injury status. I really would like to see him get in a full practice before the game happens. So if that happens, I would start him. And then as far as Allen Robinson goes, you've just got to bench him right now. He's just not doing anything, and he's not getting any volume, and that's the big problem. He doesn't have a good connection with Fields like Mooney does. And you see that a lot, when a backup quarterback comes into the situation, they don't often like the number one receiver on that team, because that number one receiver always plays with the ones and he always plays with the twos. So he plays guys that are farther down the depth chart. So, I'm guessing that's why Mooney is doing better than Robinson right now. But again, you can't trust Robinson. You got to bench him for right now. On the Raiders side, they have a really tough matchup for Waller. And for Jacobs. So both the running back and the tight end, Chicago defense is top 10 in the league. So they're just know that they have tough matchups. I'm not going to bench them, but just know that they're probably going to have a disappointing game. I do like Ruggs and Renfro here because they actually get a good matchup, and Carr has been able to deliver the ball to them and give them decent volume. So I like that, and I would sit Derek Carr because that they are going to try to put pressure on Derek Carr. That's what the Chargers did to totally rattle him this past weekend. Is they just got to him, they hit him, they sacked him, and you just rattle him, and then he can't perform as well. So anyway, so that's it for the graveyards. We just rushed right through them. Let's move on to the blowouts. And this week, not a lot of blowouts. I only got 3 blowout games listed. So the first one is the Lions at the Vikings, Sunday early game. Vikings are going to look to avenge that terrible showing they did last week. Now, as far as the Lions go, Vikings defense is middle of the road, so you can be confident that both Swift and Hockenson will be good to go, good to start. But I really just can't trust anyone else on that offense. It's a little bit hit or miss, boom or bust with those receivers and Jared Goff. So I would stay away from them if I can. Now, on the Vikings side, you are going to start Cook. You're going to start Jefferson. You're going to start Thielen, no question. I think Cousins should bounce back very nicely here. So I think Cousins is a great streaming option because of the matchup. And I also really like Conklin, the tight end. So if you're looking for a tight end to stream, or, he's done pretty good this year. Volume's a little light, but he did get some good volume last week. I think he's a good choice for this week. For me, Osborne is too inconsistent to trust right now. He's too up and down with the volume, so you can't go with that. The next game is the Dolphins and the Buccaneers on Sunday early. And there's not much to say here. Dolphins, you can't start any of the running backs against that Tampa Bay rush defense. But the Tampa Bay defense has given up the most points in the league to receivers. So I think Parker and Waddle are both good flex plays this week, and I like Gesicki as well to continue to have some success here through the air. So I do like those three players. Now, on the Buccaneers side, the Dolphins are top three for running backs. It's a top three matchup for the running back. So I would start Fournette, and I'm always very reluctant to recommend anyone from the backfield of the Buccaneers, but it does appear that Fournette is getting most of the volume, and he's been pretty effective with it. So I think he's a good choice. I like him as a flex play. I don't like it if you have to put him into one of your running back slots, but I think if you need to, you need to. Sometimes you don't have any choice because of what's going on with injuries. The other Buccaneers, you got Brady, Evans, Godwin, and Brown. All starts, all good to go. And with Gronk out, I think Cameron Brate is a very sneaky tight end play this week. If you're desperate for a tight end, I think he's a good choice if you need him. I think he's got a good matchup, and I think he could see some volume, maybe get a spike. We'll see what happens. The final blowout game I want to talk to you about is Monday Night Football's games. I can't talk. I'm not speaking English right now. The Monday Night Football game, Colts at the Ravens. Colts are just terrible, man. They're just awful. You can start Jonathan Taylor. He's got a top 10 matchup this week, so he should be good. And I also like Pittman as a volume play. He's getting nice volume in the offense, so he should be effective despite the fact that he has a tough matchup. But I don't expect them to score a lot of points. So anyway, those are the only two you can trust on that side. But on the Ravens side, there's nobody I would stay away from here. Lamar Jackson, Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown, all starts, and Latavius Murray is a sit for me, though. He's got the Colts defense is top 6 against the run, and so I would sit him. I think he's going to disappoint. And then, of course, you can't start any of the other running backs on this team right now. So anyway, there you go with that. So finally, we get to the gold mine. So I've only done 8 games so far. We got 16 games this week, so that we got 8 games that are gold mines. So let's just get right to it. Good games. There's going to be some good fantasy games this week. I'm very excited about this. And it starts on Thursday night with the Rams at the Seahawks. Tons of fantasy goodness here on all sides. For the Rams, you got great matchups for Henderson and Stafford, so both are definite starts this week. There is nothing daunting about the Seattle defense. Kupp is a start. Higbee is a marginal start, but he's getting good volume, so I think he's good. Woods and Van Jefferson both sit below that 7-target threshold, so you're better with them on your bench. But they're good for a flex if you need them. I think Woods will get enough production to make him, okay, he was a good choice, but as a flex play. For Seattle, the Rams just got destroyed by Arizona last week, so I don't think that defense is quite as imposing as everyone thinks it is. Obviously, you start your studs here. Wilson, Metcalf, Lockett. Definitely start all of them. And I know there's a lot of concern about Carson right now. He had a really disappointing game last week, and you saw all that work from Alex Collins. I wouldn't worry about it. Carson has been very consistent in his touches. First 4 games, he's gotten 16, 13, 12, and 13. That's just what they give him. That's what they're giving him. And he's been very effective with it through the first 3 weeks. He just had a bad week next week. I think he gets a better matchup here against LA. They've given the 11th most fantasy points to running backs. And as far as for those of you who are thinking about starting Alex Collins, I would not do that. He absolutely needs to be on your bench if you can get him. I actually got him on the waiver wire in one of my leagues. But don't start him because he didn't get that much volume. He got... even though it seems like he did, it's just he had some good effective plays, but it's still Carson's backfield. So don't be worried about Carson right now. I'm not worried about him. The next one, this is a surprising fantasy goldmine game for me. I would not have expected to put these teams in here, but we got the Jets at the Falcons. And how is this team a goldmine? Well, you got 2 terrible defenses. And so that's going to lead to a productive day on both sides. For the Jets, Atlanta is top 10 for all opposing positions. So Corey Davis, Jamison Crowder absolutely starts. Michael Carter, I think, is also a marginal start. The guy got 14 touches and targets last week. That's right on the border. That's right on the border of what I like to look for. Good matchup. I think he's good. I think you need to sit Elijah Moore. And what about Zach, the quarterback? You know what? He might be a streaming option this week if you're desperate. If you're super desperate, he might be worth it. But otherwise, I would stay away. For Atlanta, the Falcons have given up the most points to running backs. For Atlanta, the Jets have given up the most points to running backs. So Cordarrelle Patterson and Mike Davis are both starts. Both should be productive. Again, Cordarrelle Patterson is a guy that doesn't hit my threshold, but he's been so effective, and he's really more of a receiver than a running back. So as a receiver, he comes very close to the threshold on that count. But I think both are starts. I think both are going to be productive here. Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, you can't sit those guys, so just go with them. The Jets are top 10 against both wide receivers and tight ends, but again, you just can't sit them. They're good. And I would sit Matt Ryan. I don't think you want to start Matt Ryan in this matchup. The next game, a Sunday early game, Packers at the Bengals. Again, two good offenses that should be productive. For the Packers, it is a tough matchup for Rodgers, but you're not going to sit Rodgers. Adams and Jones are good to go. And I think both Randall Cobb and Lazard should remain on your bench right now. Neither one of them are hitting that seven targets a game. So you can't trust it yet. So I would keep him on your bench. And as far as Tanyan goes, he's too inconsistent, up and down with his volume. So you can't trust him either. So I would keep him on your bench. On the Bengals, Packers are top 10 against wide receivers, and we got a little bit of a situation with receivers. We don't know if T. Higgins is going to be back this week. If T. Higgins misses, I'm totally cool with starting Boyd and Chase. But if Higgins comes back, if Higgins is able to play, I would be inclined to sit Boyd because of that. So that's where I'm at with those receivers right now. Seems like only 2 out of the 3 are getting productive when all 3 are playing. So that's the risk you got to take when you take these crowded receiver fields. The Packers are middle of the road against running backs. Obviously Mixon is injured right now. He may or may not play. I think he's leaning towards he will not play. So I think Samaje Perine is a sneaky start as a flex play this week. I think he's a good start. And again, I got him in one of my leagues. He's going into my flex. It's one of my CMC leagues. So I need him to do something. I need some help on this team. Oh boy, man, it's tough. Next Goldmine game, Eagles at Panthers, Sunday early. For the Eagles, the Carolina defense, man, they're good. They're good. I think there's going to be limited opportunities here for the Eagles offense. The players I would start would be Hurts, Devonta Smith, and I think Zach Ertz is absolutely a start. He's gotten over 7 targets in each of the past 2 games, so I really, really like that. Sanders needs to be on your bench for right now. I just don't get what's going on with his usage. Goddard isn't getting enough volume to start either, so he's only getting like 5 targets a game. Again, I don't like that unless you're absolutely desperate. And Gainwell, again, it's just he's not getting enough volume. Although he seems to be getting more usage than Sanders, which is disappointing for me. I don't like that. Sanders has been just stinking up one of my fantasy teams. On the Panthers side, Philly is top 10 against receivers, but come on, you're not going to sit DJ Moore, and Robbie Anderson is absolutely a go. With CMC out, all that pass volume goes to Robbie. It's so weird. I don't understand. Both should continue to be targeted heavily. Chuba looks like a great flex play here. It's an easy defense. It's an easy rush defense, so I like that. And Sam Darnold, is he an every week start, man? I think he is. Those rushing touchdowns are crazy. Who knew? Who knew that he could do that? 5 rushing touchdowns in 4 games. That's nuts. Don't expect that every week. But holy cow. I think Sam Darnold, it needs to be one of those that's like, oh yeah, you start him. You start Sam Darnold. He'll be fine. He'll be good. But just great. Adam Gase, you're a great coach, aren't you, Adam Gase? The thing that I'm most disappointed with is now, after this season, we don't have it anymore. There's no more Adam Gase effect with players. This is it. But, I knew Darnold was going to be great this year, man. I wish I had more shares of him. I don't. Next Sunday early game, Goldmine Titans at the Jaguars. Again, two teams with bad defenses. So on the Titans side, I got to say, man, I don't know if you've heard of this guy that they have on this team. His name's Derrick Henry. You know what? He's pretty good. You should watch his tape. He's pretty good. I think he'd be great to start this week. I'd recommend starting him. Get him off your bench. Let's see here. It is super hard right now to trust the Tennessee receivers. If A.J. Brown or Julio Jones plays, I'm inclined to keep him on the bench just because they've just been injured the whole season. It's just very annoying. Because of that, you really can't start Tannehill with his primary targets being out. Nick Westbrook did get 8 targets last week. So if either Brown or Jones are out, I think you can start him. I think you can be confident to start him as a flex play. On the Jaguars, you got really good matchups here. Love Marvin Jones and Laviska Shenault. Titans are giving up the second most points to wide receivers. So yes to both. Start them both. James Robinson, also a definite start here. So that should be a good, fun game with lots of offense. That's what I like the best, right? One of those kind of games. Next up on Sunday afternoon, we got the Niners at the Cardinals. I know that many people are super excited about starting Trey Lance this week. I would advise against it. They're going to play this week, then it's going to be the bye week, and then week 7, I think, is going to be the week that you're going to want to start Trey Lance. Cards are top 10 against quarterbacks, and I know he's very elusive. Man, I watched him squirt out of the pocket a couple times. I'm like, I don't even know how he made it out of there because it seemed like there was like 4 guys converging on him, and then whoop, he just run up for like 10 yards. He's a very exciting player, and I've got him on a lot of my fantasy teams, but I think I'm going to wait because, again, it's a very tough matchup. The Cardinals defense is also really tough against tight ends, so George Kittle is a concern, but you're not going to sit him. You're going to play Kittle. Debo's a great start, but I really can't trust any of the other receivers right now, and I think Trey Sermon is also a good start this week. As he is the healthiest running back on this team right now. On the Cardinals side, I'm good with starting all the stars here. I think Murray, Hopkins, Edmonds, and Connor is a start. Connor is getting great red zone work. It's kind of surprising. Edmonds has been very productive for fantasy because I think he's the most targeted receiver on the team right now, so he's getting all that receiving volume, but he's getting nothing on the goal line. That's all going to Connor. Connor's cashing in 4 touchdowns in the past 2 weeks. You can't ignore that. You can't deny that. Connor's a play right now. He's good. Really, I can't trust the volume on any of the other receivers right now outside of Hopkins, just because they're just spreading it around so much. Most of these guys are below that 7 target per game threshold I like to see. So all the rest of the Arizona receivers I would bench. I also think Max Williams is a bench here as well. Again, he had a spike game last week, but he didn't get very much volume at all. So again, he's not a guy I would want to start at this point. We got 2 more games to go. Sunday afternoon, Giants at the Cowboys. This actually should be a pretty high-scoring game. I'm kind of excited to see this. It really seems like the Giants' offense is on the rise. With Saquon Barkley being back, looked great last week. Should continue to look great this week. Now let's, so the Cowboys are top 10 against the run, but don't worry about it. Start Saquon. He's going to be fine. I also really like Kenny Golladay. And right now we need to watch the status of Sterling Shepard. If Shepard sits again, I think Tony's a start. If Shepard plays, I would sit Tony and play Shepard instead. Evan Engram, I think, is a desperation start. He is getting the volume. He's just not doing crap with it right now. So if he can turn it around, he could be very productive for fantasy. So as a desperation tight end, I think Evan Engram is a good choice. On the Cowboys, I don't think I would sit anyone here. The only players I would sit would be your marginal players anyway. I think Pollard is a sit, and Jarwin is a sit right now, the tight end. But Prescott, Lamb, Elliott, Cooper, and Dwight Schultz, another great tight end that's getting the volume, you can start him. So all those guys are starts. Should be a great game. Finally, and this game could be a surprise blowout game. And it's the Sunday night game. Bills at the Chiefs. Bills have shut out two teams this season. Now, admittedly, those two teams are not the Chiefs, and I do not expect the Chiefs to get shut out. I don't think you can do that. I don't think that's legally able to happen. But we could see another disappointing game out of the Chiefs, and we've seen him. Now, on the Bills side, I think Allen and Diggs are starts automatically. And I do like Moss as a flex play because of his red zone usage. He had 5 carries in the red zone last week. That's awesome. So go with that. It's like a Connor situation. He's getting the opportunity to score those touchdowns. Dawson Knox, I think, is a tight end that's worth a start this week. I think he's got a good matchup. It should continue to be productive. But the other receivers, Cole Beasley, is the worst kind of fantasy player in my opinion. Look at his usage in the first 4 weeks. 13 targets, 4 targets, 13 targets, 2 targets. That will murder your fantasy team. You cannot start a player like Beasley. Beasley is only, from this point forward, a daily fantasy play. Play him in daily. Hope he has one of those blow-up weeks, but otherwise just stay away. And then Emmanuel Sanders, again, had some big plays last week. He's getting all this buzz, not getting enough volume. I can't trust the volume to want to start him. So he would be on my bench. On the Chiefs, Buffalo's shutting everyone down. And we know this. But, of course, you're never going to sit Mahomes or Kelsey or Hill. Play him. But the guy I think you do need to bench this week is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I think if you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire on your team, you have some time here, try to work a trade. He's come off of 2 big games in a row. I think this is going to be a very poor game for him. And if you can get him off your team for someone else, I think you'll be in really good shape. So work that this week. If you're a CEH coach, if you got CEH on your team, try to do that. Try to get him off your team. But there you go, man. That's it. That's all 16 games. Next week is the first of the bye week. So that's going to change some stuff here. I think it's only 2 teams on bye next week. It's San Francisco and one other team. I don't even know who. But anyway, so good luck in week 5 here. Again, I apologize for missing my podcast on Monday. I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try to get my script together earlier. I did my script. I got my script together, but I had no time Monday or Sunday evening or that's when I wrote my script. Monday all day I was not available. Tuesday all day not available. So I wasn't able to get it out in time. So again, I apologize. I'll be better next week. But thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. If you got any questions about any of these players or any players at all, just leave a comment down below. We can talk about it, all right? So good luck in week 5. I'm hoping for some rebound work by my poor CMC teams, but I'm looking for continued success with those other strong players that I got this year. So anyway, thank you very much for watching. Have yourself a great fantasy day. We'll talk to you soon.